Good morning, team. Justin Dunaway here with the Institute of Clinical Excellence. I'm lead faculty in our total spine thrust manipulation and persistent pain comprehensive management courses. And today I want to talk about an article I recently read addressing recurrent low back pain, exercise, and education. But before I dive into the course, or before I dive into today's talk, I'm currently in week 4 of the fitness athlete pregnancy and postpartum pain course. So quick shout out to Christina Previtt and Alexis Morgan. What a wonderful course. This is a course this is a space that I know absolutely nothing about. I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone and wheelhouse, and hopping into this course, I've learned a ton. I'm super comfortable. It's a wonderful course that I think would be awesome for anybody like me that knows absolutely nothing. I also think it'd be a great course for people that hang out and live in this space and treat these patients. So fitness athlete, pregnancy and postpartum pain, wonderful course. Also, if you're looking for some online CEUs, June 7th is the next round of both the primary care PT course with Morgan Denny and persistent pain comprehensive management with me. So if you're looking for some online CEUs, head over to ptonice.com and check out those courses or anything else we offer. All right, let me dive into today's topic. So recurrent back pain, why we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I read this study recently, and I'm going to be honest, it challenged my biases pretty hard, a little bit triggered. The title got me, right? Exercise is medicine, but perhaps not for preventing low back pain. Randomized trial of exercise and education to prevent low back pain recurrence from Fiera 2021. And again, like I said, this challenged my biases pretty hard. I'm going to tell you that I believe that exercise is medicine for everything, including recurrent low back pain. But let's dive into the study a little bit. So what they did is they took 111 patients that had recently recovered from back pain, and up to 7 days or longer ago, they had back pain. Now they're feeling pretty good. They got 8 sessions. They got split in 2 groups, and you either got 8 sessions of supervised exercise and education, and 2 days a week of an HEP or an education booklet. The exercise program, they said, was based on ACSM guidelines, which basically just meant that they included flexibility, cardiovascular exercise, resistance training, and neuromuscular training. But they didn't really go into a lot of detail about what those were. Now, they tracked these 2 groups for a year, and they measured reoccurrence, time to reoccurrence, a bunch of different stuff. And what they found is that both these groups were exactly the same. There was no prevention in reoccurrence. There was no change in activity levels. There was no change in care seeking. There was no change in work absence between either of the 2 groups. Like, they both had their back pain again, and it was severe in both groups. So the conclusion was just that exercise and education did not prevent reoccurrence. Not a fan of that message. It hurts my soul a bit. We dive into the research. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I take a little bit of some exception with this. Right. So first of all, they said that that resistance and neuromuscular training only occurred in about 50% of the sessions. No idea what they're doing in the rest of the sessions. And the sessions weren't standardized. It was just basically what the therapist felt like that patient needed. And then adherence, which was defined as you showed up to your live sessions 80% of the time, and you did your HEP. You told your therapist that you did your HEP 2 days a week at least 80% of the time. Adherence in the exercise group was only 55%. So we don't know what exercises were happening. We don't know if people actually did the stuff. And we don't know what was actually guideline adherent. We don't know if these people were hitting 150 minutes of moderate activity per week or 75 minutes of vigorous activity per week or some combination of both, plus 2 days of resistance training per week, or 300 minutes if we're going off the World Health Organization guidelines. We don't know that that was actually happening. So I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that exercise and education aren't effective for this stuff, because I don't know that we measured that. One thing I know for sure, though, is that every human, regardless of what they're in the clinic for, needs clean water, clean food, and guideline-adhered exercise at a minimum. But I don't want to talk about that today. Let's say hypothetically that adherence was 100%. Let's say hypothetically that every patient was hitting that 150 to 300 minutes, 2 strength training days a week without fail, but it still didn't work. I still believe firmly that this stuff is wildly important, but why? What are some of the reasons why this exercise and education intervention may not have worked, even though it's important? And I think it goes into kind of how we study back pain and how we think about this stuff. A really nice place to start is Costa 2021 their research group put out two really nice papers talking about back pain flares. I get that reoccurrence is a little bit different than a flare-up of current back pain, but I think there's enough overlap that we can kind of run down the same path with these two thoughts. And basically what he said is we can look at back pain flares two different ways. You can have a pain-triggered flare, which is just defined as if you've had an uptick of 2 points or more in your back pain, you're having a back pain flare that day. Or a patient-defined flare, based on all kinds of stuff. John just says, my back's a thing today, I'm having a back pain flare. What's really interesting is when you look at self-reported patient-defined flares, most flare-up days don't come with an increase in pain, but they do come with an increase in fatigue and pain catastrophizing and low self-efficacy and fear avoidance. And when we look at the pain flare days, the pain triggered days that they just checked to on the chart, all of those pain flare days have the exact same low psychosocial profile as the patient defined flare days. All of that to say, when we look at reoccurrence, when we look at flare-ups, when we look at these things kicking back up, it is way more to do with a whole lot of stuff in the environment than just pain. That's not to say that strength, endurance, and education aren't important. They're wildly important. There's just still a whole lot more going on. So when we think about researching this, when we think about studying exercise, these things have to be at least part of the equation. We have to be thinking about sleep. We have to be thinking about stress and anxiety and coping mechanisms. We have to be thinking about fear avoidance and pain catastrophizing and job satisfaction and all the things that we know affect this stuff. Or at the very least, we have to control for it. And that's the thing that we never do in research. I want you to think about that. When we're studying, when we study exercise for back pain, these things need to be controlled for. We have to control for the environment. When was the last time you read a study that the inclusion criteria said, okay, so we've got patients that have recurrent back pain. To be included in the study, they have to have, on average, 7 hours a night of sleep over the last 2 weeks. And at least 5 days a week, they wake up and they feel rested. They have to have a pain catastrophizing score of X. They have to have a generalized anxiety disorder scale 7 of at least Y. Their pain self-efficacy score has to be Z. If we control those things, if those things are controlled for and within acceptable ranges, then we can look at back pain and see if back pain changes reoccurrence rate. But when we know that those things, we know that sleep, self-efficacy, and job satisfaction are one of the biggest drivers for flare-ups. If we don't control those, if we don't look at those, we're not really studying the effects of exercise. We're just studying the variability of all that other stuff. This is why we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. My good friend Lindsay Huey hates that phrase, but I think it really makes sense here. I want you to think about that. The baby's back pain. And the way that we currently study back pain is like taking a dirty kid and setting him in a filthy tub with disgusting water. And we wash him with soap. That's the exercise. We wash him with soap. The kid doesn't get clean, so we say the soap sucks. So we throw that away and get new soap. Or we say the kid is stained and they're never going to get any better. The back pain is what it is and nothing works for it. And then we move on. Until the soap was never meant to clean the tub. The soap was never meant to wash the water. Team, exercise, strength, endurance training, education is wildly important and is wildly important for everybody on the planet, including the prevention of low back pain. But if the environment is a disaster, if the patient isn't sleeping well, if they have high anxiety and no coping mechanisms, if they have poor job satisfaction, if they have low pain self-efficacy, if they have high fear avoidance or pain catastrophizing, it doesn't matter how good the soap is. It doesn't matter how good your exercise is. If the environment is a disaster, the exercise isn't going to move the needle. So from a research perspective, until we get good at controlling for the environment, until we start writing our inclusion and exclusion criteria in a way that controls for the things that we know are most predictive of reoccurrence, we'll never know if exercise moves the needle on this stuff or not. This is why kind of all of our research starts to look the same. right? We got low effect sizes, everything, at a year out, everything looks pretty similar, and it's pretty darn close to the natural progression. And when we look at the whole of the research, some studies say it works, some studies say it don't. And it's really a function of the fact that the environment's all over the place. Clean the tub, wash the water, and then measure the intervention. From a treatment perspective, it makes sense. Then we step back, we take the 1,000-foot view, and we treat the whole patient. We do education, we do exercise, we do strength training. We talk about sleep hygiene. We work on stress coping mechanisms. We find ways to have more job satisfaction. We find ways to increase capacity and have more social engagement. We treat the psychosocial profile. We treat the environment. We know that all of those pieces are important, so we treat them all. When we read research like this, we can't look at this and say, okay, well, cool, exercise and education don't make a difference, so we're just going to move on to something else. They're wildly important, but they're only important in the context of the whole picture. We don't treat pain. We treat the environment that allows pain to thrive. Strength, exercise, education are all wildly important parts of the environment, but so are all these other pieces. If these other pieces are out of whack, it doesn't matter how powerful that first piece is. So at the end of the day, from a treatment perspective, we have to treat the whole patient, and we know this. From a research perspective, if we're going to design trials to look at a specific intervention, we have to control the environment. We have to pick people that live in the same environment, that have these same markers, and hold those constant, and then look at that intervention. If those are all over the place, and we know that those are the biggest drivers, then it makes sense that we'll never see what we're looking for from the intervention arm. All right, team, that's what I got. Can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Thanks for checking out this session. Have an awesome day. Head over to ptonice.com and check out some of our upcoming courses and kill it in the clinic.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.